Hi, this is Scott with 4D Tech. Today we are in a 2015 Ford Focus that came MyFord touch equipped but lacks navigation. We're going to show you how easy it is to upgrade this vehicle to navigation using the 4D Tech MyFord Touch Navigation Upgrade Kit. To begin, we need a few basic tools. We need a Phillips and flathead screwdriver, T25 Torx driver, and some plastic dash removal tools. The dash removal tools are available on our website for your convenience. Let's get started. To begin disassembly, we need to remove this silver dark gray piece of trim that goes around the bottom of the shifter bezel. We'll grab one of our dash removal tools to do that. We'll start around the edge here and work our way around. And you'll use a combination of the pry tool and pulling out with your fingers to release the trim. And this little side panel over here at the edge of the trim can just pop out a little bit, and then the trim will pull away from it, and we can set this out of the way. Now we need to remove this cover panel that's below the radio bezel but above the heater controls. It's got the passenger airbag light in it. Same thing, we're going to want to take our dash removal tool and get it in that edge and begin to pop it out. And you may need to wiggle it, pry it a little bit towards you to get it out of the opening. And once that's pulled out, we need to disconnect this connector for the passenger side airbag light. There's a little clip where my thumbnail is. Push that down and unplug it, and we'll set this panel out of the way. Next, we'll take our T25 Torx driver, and there's a few Torx screws that we need to take out. We'll start with the one at the base of the shifter here. And there's two up here at the top edge of the heater control panel. And there's two more here that secure the upper bezel in that this heater control panel overlaps. We're going to go ahead and take those out since we already got the screwdriver in our hand. You can't see them from the camera angle, but they're right here where my two fingers are. With those screws out of the way, we're going to need to move the shifter back in order to get this panel out temporarily. So we'll set the parking brake, turn the ignition on, move the shifter back, and pull up and out on the panel. Now once we do that, you can put your fingers underneath, and you see that I can push the trim panel for the shifter that holds the boot out with my fingers. It may take turning this a couple different ways to figure it out, but you need to turn the trim for the shifter in a way that it slides through the opening so that we can get this panel out. Just be careful not to scratch it up and to force it through. It will fall through if you get the angle right. We'll spin this panel around, and we need to, you can do a couple things with this panel. You can hang it over the side here while you work. Just make sure that you protect your finishes, put down a cloth or whatever. I like to get panels completely out of my way so I don't have to worry about them. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this. There's a few connectors, so when you disconnect stuff in a vehicle, you always want to take note so that you reconnect all those things that you took out earlier. This cigarette lighter jack here, push in with our thumb and unplug. That'll allow us to turn the panel so you can see the rest. This is the USB cable. I'm going to take my flat blade screwdriver and put it underneath that edge to work that out. We're going to hold that with our finger, get on the other side of it, and you just basically need to work this connector out by pulling out on both tabs and pulling the connector out. Now we'll spin this panel around. It's going to be hard to see the connectors because the cabling is kind of short here. But these are the two heater control connectors that need to get unplugged. These tabs work a little bit differently than a lot of other connectors we deal with because the tab needs to be depressed as close to the panel as possible, all the way down at the bottom edge there. And they're kind of hard to unplug. But if we push down really hard, close to the bezel there, it'll unplug. And then same thing here, get your finger as close to the back of the heater controls as possible, push in, and then unplug the connector. And now we can put this panel out of the way, put our shifter back into park, and shut our vehicle back off. Next, we need to pull the bezel off that's around the screen, the radio bezel. The best way to do that is to get your fingers up underneath this edge here and just pull outward. It'll take a little bit of pressure to get it to pop out, but it's just these bottom two clips, and once they pop out, the whole panel is loose. When we pull the panel forward, there's two connectors here. There's one on the back of the hazard switch and one on the back of the controls. The back of the hazard switch, I can't pull it out enough to show you on the camera, but it's a flat connector and there's a clip at the end of the connector on the driver's side that you push in with your nail and it'll unplug. And you can see here the clip is on this side, and if I turn around the connector you can see you got to push in on there with your nail to unclip it. Then we'll swing this around, and this connector here has a clip right on the top of it. Push that in and unplug it as well, and we'll set the radio bezel out of the way. Next, we'll take our T25 Torx and take out the 4 screws here holding the screen in. With the 4 screws out holding the screen, we need to pull the screen out. With this dash, this padded part of the dash up here restricts the screen a little bit. So if you hold these upper tabs and push up with your thumbs, you can slide the screen by. Once we slide the screen by, we'll rotate it, and you can see on the back here there's 2 things that need to be disconnected. First, we'll disconnect the USB. We'll take our thumb, push down on the clip on the back of the connector, and unplug that. This main 54-pin connector here has a little locking tab in front of this gray lever. You push down the locking tab so that the lever will move, pull the lever towards you all the way till the connector comes out. And now we have the screen out. Now that we have the screen out, we need to take this API-M off the back and replace it with the one from 4D Tech that's navigation equipped. I would recommend doing this on a table or so. You can set this face down on the foam from the box that we ship this to you in. For the sake of this video, so that you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to throw a cloth up in this opening and set the unit there. There are 4 Phillips screws in these holes that hold the API-M onto the back of the screen. We'll take those out now. With those 4 screws out, we take the brain and we just pull it off the back of the screen. It connects to the screen electrically with this connector in the center. So that's what we're pulling it off of. We'll take our new APIM from 4D Tech here that is navigation equipped. And you line up these 2 studs to these 2 holes, which will align the connector, and push it back on. And now we'll replace the 4 screws we took out earlier. With the new APIM on the back of the screen, we'll now put the screen back in the dash. To reconnect this 54-pin connector, you'll want to make sure the lever is still fully pulled towards you. Slide it into the connector till you see the lever start to move. Once the lever starts to move, push the lever backwards till it clips to lock the connector in. It's very important you get that seated properly or else things will not work. Then we'll take our USB cable and plug it back into the black connector with the clip facing upwards. Now we'll put our screen back into place. And as I showed you when I took it out, the padded top of the dash puts pressure on it, so you'll kind of have to work the screen back in past the pad. Once you get the edge of these brackets past this black plastic, it'll drop right in. With the screen back in, we'll now replace the 4 screws we took out earlier. With the screen mounted back in the opening, we'll replace the radio bezel. Remember to reconnect the connector on the back side of the radio controls with the clip facing up. Slide the connector in until it clips. We'll swing the bezel around. There's a little square rectangled opening here below the connector. When you're putting this back in, you'll want to make sure you drop the passenger side airbag light connector through there at the same time. Next, we'll need to reconnect this hazard switch. You'll have to get it closer to do it. Clip facing towards the driver's side and plug it back into the connector. When we put this dash panel back in, put the top in first, push that up in, and then clip in the bottom. And now we need to replace the heater control dash and the trim that we took out earlier down here. First, we want to get the shifter out of the way, so we'll turn the ignition on and bring the shifter back and grab our panel to go back in. To reconnect this, the blue connector goes on the left-hand side furthest in. The clips both face upward. Slide the connector in till it clips into place. And then same with the black connector. Clip up, slide in till it clicks into place. Now we'll replace the USB connector. We just simply slide that back into the opening where we unclipped it till it locks in place. And then the power outlet, slide that in, clip facing the hole right there. Clip that in as well. Now we want to slide this back in, and we'll want to pull this shifter trim back through carefully, not to scratch it up. And also, we'll want to make sure that we keep this connector for the passenger side airbag light in front of the panel and not get it stuck behind there. We'll push the panel in till it clips in and all the screw holes line up, and then we'll replace all the screws we took out earlier. That'll be the 3 holding this panel and the 2 into the bottom of the radio bezel. With those screws back in, we'll clip the shifter trim back into place. We'll grab our outer trim and snap that back in as well. And just clip it back in the same way it came out. And then snap this little piece back into the side. Now, this piece of trim that went between the 2 bezels, we want to make sure we plug the passenger side airbag light back in. Remember, reconnect any connectors you took out earlier. With the clip facing towards you, click it in until it locks in, and push this trim back in to snap it back in. And that's all. And now with the dash reassembled, we need to take our SD map card that comes with the kit from 4D Tech, take the map card, and inside your center console there's a hub facing straight up with an SD card slot. With the label facing towards the front of the vehicle, push the SD card in till it clicks into place. And now we'll fire up the system. And you see we now have a navigation icon up in the green bar where it used to say information. And then we now have maps as well. So now you see how simple it is to upgrade your 2015 Focus from MyFord Touch to navigation with the 4D Tech MyFord Touch Sync to Navigation Upgrade Kit. This is Scott with 4D Tech. Thank you for checking out our video.